Okay, we're live.
All right, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. This is Wendy Rose Williams, and this is the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. And some of you are kindly spending some time with us and joining us live in the Waking Up Spiritually group on Facebook. And some of you will be hearing this program via Zoom and connecting in that way. And some are going to hear it later via the archive. So today's topic is using spiritual tools. And I'll just give a quick intro to what I do and then turn it over to my co-host Gregg to do the same, and then we'll get started. And just let me admit Linda here. We've got folks coming in through the waiting room. So I am a past life adventure guide, past life regressionist who trained with Dr. Brian Weiss, among others. And I'm also a certified spiritual teacher, Reiki master energy healer, and an author. And my website is my full name, which is WendyRoseWilliams.com. So Gregg, turning it over to you, please introduce yourself. And I'd also love it if you would present that sacred space for us and help everyone raise their vibration for the broadcast.
Great idea. I'm Gregg Kirk. You can find me at Gregg, that's spelled GreggKirk.com, GreggKirk.com. I am an energy worker, light worker. I help people with chronic illnesses on a physical level. And I do remote energy sessions, distant energy sessions, as well as in-person sessions with tuning forks. And the point of those sessions is to look for blocks that might be from past lives, might be from trauma, from different lives, or earlier this life, and that's what I do. So as with any session that I launch into, I help create a sacred space that is clear and only positive and protected. So I'd like to do that right now because we're going to be talking about some spiritual tools, showing some of our own personal spiritual tools. I'd like to invoke Archangel Michael, Raphael, Saint Germain, all the guides, guardian angels, healing entities, and non-physical beings who have all of our best interests in mind, including the entities from Casa de Damanaccio, Yeshua ben Joseph, Mary of Bethany, the Divine Mother, and all the Magdalens to provide healing, guidance, and protection for all of us during this broadcast. We'd like to establish that everyone listening, and as well as the co-hosts in this broadcast, are sovereign beings practicing free will. We do not give permission for anything or anyone to enter our fields or our bodies without our consent, and we do not allow the mingling of our energies during this session. Thank you all. Back to you, Wendy.
Well, thanks, Gregg. I just want to mention, Gregg does amazing sessions. I got into a healing crisis this past Sunday through a couple of things I was doing, and it's all good. It's all for a purpose. It's all for a reason. But just the combination of the full moon and the Lion's Gate. And I did 3 different spiritual activities last Sunday, which was just a power-packed day. And I had really asked my guides, oh my goodness, you want me to do these 3 things all in one day? And they said yes. And I also decided it would be fun to drag a super heavy hammock stand around the side of my house and set up my hammock. And I really was in a lot of pain as a result, and had an opportunity to clear my energy, which I do daily, but I really worked on it, and I just started hearing Gregg's name. And I hope it's okay, Gregg. You know, I refer to you as my spiritual ER. Because occasionally we do need an emergency healing, and we do everything we can to take great care of our own energy and our own bodies. But I really think that was why my guides were pushing me so hard to do so much in one day, was so I would tip over and get into a lot of pain. Because what that did, as Gregg and I then worked together, because I couldn't heal myself, I couldn't resolve the issue. What that allowed me to do was to get to a much deeper level of grounding. And it was a beautiful healing that got me more on the planet and more in my body. And that's really important. And that's one of the reasons I use spiritual tools and enjoy spiritual tools. So Gregg, you're welcome to share. I'm the one that brought it up. Normally there'd be client confidentiality, but you're welcome to talk about anything from that, because it was an unusual healing session. I think it just ties in with what we're talking about today in some
Yeah.
ways.
The sessions with all of my clients, patients, whatever you want to call them, are getting more and more unusual. So, in fact, that's why I'm getting started writing another book, because I'm just collecting the information from these sessions, because each one is a new learning experience. Um, it seems like everybody's getting down to the root of what's going on with them right now on an individual level. The energies are extremely high coming from the sun. Just there's some harmonic alignment that's going on right now. So there's some planets that are in alignment. It's changing everything. So everybody's kind of on fire right now in a good and a bad sense. And honestly, spirit doesn't look at anything as good or bad. It's all for your
It's just all
potential.
right. It's just all neutral. It's just an experience.
It's everything has a potential for growth. So that's part of the test as to how you look at it. So if you look at something that seems bad to you or painful at first as a pain in the ass or something bad that's happening to you because you're a bad person, that will amplify and it can start to take you down. As opposed to if you look at it as like Wendy was like, oh, I was being pushed into this by my guides. I was being pushed into a painful spot. And she realized that she needed someone outside of herself to make a correction or to take the pressure off.
To help witness, I think
Resolve
it's
it. Resolve it. Help.
Holding that sacred space together,
Yes.
with the guides doing the healing.
Right. That was an important thing. Sometimes asking for help is as much as giving is a sacred thing as much as giving help to someone. So all of that was involved, and all this stuff is very profound, and I'm glad to hear that you are feeling better. It's just also important for us all to realize as everybody steps into their own mastery of healing and all that kind of thing, is the hardest person to heal is yourself, or usually somebody you're very emotionally entangled with, loved ones or family members. That they can be the hardest people to heal. There's a lot of blind spots involved with them. I'm not sure why, but it's true. So brilliant that your guides were actually telling you, saying my name, whatever the case. That was kind of, the upshot is the session, was less than an hour. We took care of business. It had a positive outcome. It was, it was very, all of this happened at like light speed. So it all worked out. And thank you for mentioning it. Thank you for referring, people to me. I always appreciate it. And I really do like the term spiritual ER. Cool.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get into some spiritual tools. And I just want to preface it by saying almost anything can be a spiritual tool. To me, the purpose of them is to just help us get into our heart and to help us connect with the divine. And this is not about buying a lot of stuff or having a lot of stuff. I was actually kind of shocked by how much of it I have collected over the last decade, because I've just been guided to. And like I said, a lot of it was already in the house. So it was just trying to assemble it into some meaningful groupings to take some photos to be able to share with you. So, but don't feel, oh my goodness, I can't connect with my guides, or I can't be a healer, or I can't do any of these things because I don't have these physical spiritual tools. That's not true at all. But we just want to show some examples and just have some fun with it. Because like I said, some of them are right in your own house. They're already there, and you just haven't maybe thought of them that way. Or they're right around you in nature, or they're your own pets and animals. Those sorts of things, just as spiritual partners and energy partners.
Do you want me to just say the word and I'll start sharing?
Okay,
screen?
Sure. Start the screen share, please.
Okay. And
all right. So what's on the left is my collection of sound instruments. I made a drum, and that was such a privilege to get to do that. That was a 6-hour workshop. because I would never have been able to have, known how to build a drum, and I would not have had those proper supplies. And it was done in sacred ceremony. There was a group of 6 or 8 of us, and I got that accomplished just before the COVID shutdown. So I was definitely meant to have that drum, and then also made the drum beater that's pictured on top of it. And some of the other things that are there was also a rattle. It's kind of a ceremonial rattle. It's just so decorative. I don't use it a lot. And then the rattle on the right, I do use a lot. That's kind of like my daily work rattle. And I use it to clear my own energy every morning. And I also use it regularly to clear my house. I'm just not someone who really cares to burn sage. Sage is wonderful for a lot of people, but I just don't care for the smell and the smokiness. So I used to use that bell that was in the kind of the back left, a little hard to see in the photo. And that bell was interesting because I didn't have a bell, and my guides were saying you need to have a bell and use it to clear your home by going in the corners of each room, and you're working your way from the innermost part of the house. And then and initially I have all the windows and doors closed, and then I work my way through to the closest door, and I'm just like moving the energy out. And then I open all the windows and open all the doors and bring the new energy in. But that bell, because I didn't own one, my guides were like, oh, we're going to make this super simple. Stop at that consignment shop on the way home. It's right next to your local grocery store. Go in there and there's a bell waiting for you. So I was like, wow, that's cool. So I went in and I found it. It was there. I almost lost faith because there was a lot of items in that consignment store, but there it was, and I found it. So as I said, I used that for quite a few years until I found that wonderful rattle that's on the right, my work rattle that I purchased at a powwow. And again, it was waiting for me. It only cost $5. I was kind of shocked. And that bell was only $2. So it's not about the money. It's just about, getting the messages from your guides and just, kind of having the intent of what, you should be doing with these things. So those are some of my sound instruments. And the candle that's there is meaningful to me. It has a sound to it. It just sounds like a crackling fire. It's from Australia. And my new son-in-law brought that back for me from his semester abroad. And I just thought that was so sweet. Here this young man is in college and manages to, shove that in his, purchase something meaningful and manages to squeeze that in his suitcase for his then, girlfriend's mom. It's like, how thoughtful was that? So that's my sound instruments is what that collection is. And then in the chair to the right is my overly busy photo of my growing Native American collection, and just various things that are there. The bag to the left, it is not pot, people, which is legal in Washington State. It's Native American tobacco. And I just purchased it recently via Etsy because my guides asked me to, and I'm going to start doing some ceremony with it. And interestingly, I purchased it and I'm like waiting and waiting for it to come. And then my intuition was like, go check the mailbox. It arrived. So I went out there, Native American tobacco. It arrived from Jordan, the country of Jordan. I can't even wrap my head around that one. But for whatever reason, that's the global economy that we have, and it's just going to be really fun to work with it and just see what comes up with that. And the Palo Santo, the Hollywood package, obviously still sealed up. That I won as like a raffle prize when I was at an event, so that was meant to come to me. And just I do have some sage there, and as I said, I just haven't wanted to burn it. And the feather also came to me as a raffle prize, that huge feather with that neat handle on it. And it's just the neatest feeling. If you've ever held a really large feather like that, they are so airborne. It's so light. It's like I can't even like hold it straight out. It's like it just like pops up in the air. It's just the neatest airiness to it. I think it's a reminder to lighten up. So that's some of what's on there. So
What are the two black balls that have the yin yang symbols on them?
yes, those are they're they're a dark green with the yin yang on it, and they are rattles. So
Oh,
they've got rattles inside them. So I just use them kind of like for clearing work. And a lot of times either I'm working to balance my masculine and feminine, or a client is. So I can just tell on the days that I get up and I put black and white clothing on, I look down at myself and I'm like, oh goodness, I know what we're working on today. And just working to get those aspects balanced, because we all have divine masculine and feminine within us, and it's just a matter of integrating it and getting it to getting those two parts of us to play nicely. Because if you've ever sat and meditated and had a conversation with them, sometimes they're not working together very nicely. They're just not very integrated. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who's experienced that. So okay, so what's here? Some of my Magdalene, so Holy Family on the left, some of my Mary Magdalene, Yeshua ben Joseph, also known as Jesus, and Mother Mary, some items there. Star of Bethlehem, essential oil, rose essential oil, and divine purpose. And that crystal in the lower right, there's two pieces of it. It's rhodochrosite, which is what's known for healing deep trauma. I did not know what that crystal was when someone recommended I purchase it. Now look at the irony of the furniture piece, this huge china cabinet that's on the right. The whole top of it is rhodochrosite. And I never knew what that was until I purchased this small piece of it. So I find that Jesus comes to a lot of us. I see him as a world teacher. I believe he was one of the most amazing healers that ever walked the earth. And I take the religion piece out of it. I just love his energy. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for Mary Magdalene's and for Mother Mary's. And I just don't get hung up. That's why that silly greeting card is there of Jesus on Twitter, 12 followers so far, sweet. Just, keeping that sense of humor there. It doesn't have to be this heavy thing. And you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be Catholic. I mean, Jesus was Jewish. You just don't have to be any of these, quote, aligned man-made religions, because he was a man. He was a healer. He was just an amazing teacher of love. And I believe that's why so many people do connect with him and do feel him come around them. So I just wanted to make that comment. Gregg, if you can go back for 1 second, that huge china cabinet, the reason I included it as a spiritual tool, I purchased this cabinet. I had the good fortune to purchase this antique, which is from the 1800s. I had the good fortune to purchase it in 94 or so with a small inheritance I received from my grandmother. This piece is huge. It is 9'4". It is 6 feet wide. It is quite deep. And the shock of it was, I realized over time, and 2 or 3 different people validated this, I owned this piece before in the 1800s. And my husband brought it over for me in that past life when I was a sea captain's wife in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And he brought it over for me from England. And that is amazing to me, that furniture can come back to you again. And one of the many ways I know it was because I got it for a ridiculously too low price, because someone had custom ordered it back in 94 when I bought it. And I had this check from my grandmother from the inheritance that I hadn't cashed. And the check was several thousand less, about 40% less than this piece, the asking price on this piece. And the minute I saw it on the floor, I just heard, "It's yours." And I was just looking at it going, "Oh, that's mine. That's absolutely mine." And I wouldn't usually have the nerve to like dicker like that over such a price difference. But the salesman came right up to me, and I just looked him straight in the eye and said, "Is the owner here by chance?" I've never said that to anyone in a store. And he kind of looked at me and he said, "Yes." I said, "Good. May I speak with him about this piece? I'm happy for you to get your commission, but I'd like to see the owner." So I went and talked with the owner, and I said, I'm absolutely in love with this piece. I can see it's way too large for your store. You must be wanting to move this out of your store." And he looked at me and he said, "I do. It was a custom order and someone then canceled. They did not take the piece." So he was stuck with it at that point. So I took the check out of my purse and told him, "I have an inheritance. I know this is way less than what it's worth. Would you like to make a deal today and have this, piece be sold?" And he gulped and looked at it and looked at the difference. I'll just tell you the numbers. I inherited $5,000. This piece was priced like at $8,500. Plus, it was going to need to be delivered and set up, and I needed some work done to it too. And he said, "It's yours." So it came home with me, and it's just a magnificent piece. What my husband did not know, in the 1800s, we had a large family, and sea captains, of course, are gone a lot. They're gone for months on end. And what he did not know was I felt compelled to help with the Underground Railroad, which was a pretty dangerous practice, particularly when you've got a house full of kids. But they were also perfect cover for it. And that large bottom piece, the center door in the bottom, it is plenty large enough for all but the largest adults to crawl through. So I actually hid people in this cabinet, and there was a false back on the back of it, and it went out through a tunnel where you could then get away from the house. So you do that under cover of darkness. And when I felt it was safe for people to come to our home as part of the railroad, I would just fly a flag on the outside of the house, and that meant it's safe to come. And when I didn't want people to come because I was afraid we were being watched, or that I was afraid, or if my husband was home, I didn't fly the flag. But that's what this piece is about, and it's just a miracle on a lot of fronts. And I did have a recent experience with it about 6 months ago. I gave away dining room table that I had. I got a new dining room table and chairs, and I gifted the one that I had. And a young couple came to get it, and they had their baby with them, and they didn't want to leave her. She was 4 months old, and they did not want to leave her in the car. So they said, "Is it okay if we just bring her in the car seat, just sit her in here while we carry the furniture out?" And I said, "Of course." And they sat the baby right next to, on the floor, that center section. She burst into the most piercing wails I have ever heard a baby express in my life. And I looked at the mom and I said, "Is it okay if I pick her up?" Because she was 4 months old. I was just checking she didn't have stranger anxiety yet. And she said, "Absolutely." So I picked her up, and I've got her like over my shoulder, and I'm like trying to pat her back and trying to get her to settle down. But that baby just lost it. And they're apologizing. They're like, "So sorry." I've got these like piercing cries in my ear. And I had a friend who was staying with me, and she was in the kitchen, and she's kind of observing that too. So they took the furniture, they took the baby, again apologizing. And I turned to my friend and I said, "What's up with the baby and the Underground Railroad and this piece of furniture?" And she just looked right at me and she said, I got the same thing as you. That baby knows you from before, and she and her mom, you helped them. She had hidden there and was just set off by it. So the baby had this tremendous past life release. And, poor little 4-month-old, of course, can't, mentally process all that, but her soul knows, and just processed it. And it was very interesting that my friend was able to validate it for me, because that was my first thought. I thought, oh my gosh. And I think that's why, because there must have been 25 people or so who had asked for the table and chairs. I gave it away on my local Buy Nothing group, and a dining room table and chairs is a pretty, popular item, but I picked them. And I thought that was just very interesting to then have that that little encounter with the baby with the cabinet. So that's my story about it.
Cool.
And what this items on the left represent, it's magic. 2020 is the year of magic. And magic, as we've seen, can be very messy. Magic, it's the year that magic is returned. I mean, the veils are thinning. People are able to connect with the dragon realm. They're able to connect with fairies. They're able to connect with ancestors on the other side. There's been all kinds of things happening that have really been challenging for people. I mean, some of us have embraced them and, you know, just worked with them. I mean, certainly there's been some challenges too, because we all have to release what doesn't serve us. But that's what this was representing. And I'm just going to display it. I've got a big, beautiful white glass, kind of a swirled glass plate, and I need to get that with it. Because magic, of course, there's different types of magic, and I want this too. It just happens to be on a black bench, and I just want to get that beautiful representation of the white magic, you know, there with it. And of course, it's always done with, you know, no harm for us or anyone else. It's always done with that, you know, highest and holiest energy. So, and then the Death Deck is a very interesting new card deck. And it was done by a grief counselor. And it's very well done. And it's done to have conversations that we wouldn't normally have. So to be able to have those important conversations with family members. So you just get good information. I mean, if they're ever end of life or, you know, hospitalized and you're just not sure what care they would want, you know, if they're not able to speak for themselves or if they're just you know, not clear, it just helps bring out a lot of those conversations. So I'm looking forward to using it, you know, with my children, with my mom, whomever is appropriate. And there's people that also are doing online Zoom groups that they call death cafes. And it's to play this game. And the game, again, is just to facilitate those important conversations that people don't normally have, because we live in a society that just is afraid of death, that shuns death, that doesn't know what to do with it. And of course, we get to be leaders when we are comfortable with reincarnation and those concepts. And let's see, what's on the right? That was a quick collecting of the work that I do with animals, and I do a lot of volunteering with the Doggone Seattle Rescue. So St. Francis is there as the patron saint of animals. And I have Ganesh there because Ganesh, he's in the back left corner. He helps, he's half man, half element, and he helps remove obstacles. So that is just a workhorse little statue that I use in a lot of my own work and work for clients. I'll often just feel a need to, you know, grab that statue and just feel that the guides are helping remove obstacles. So that was what was here. So we're ready for the next slides. Lavender. I love lavender as a cleansing tool. I need to get my affirmation card back in the basket. This is a basket. I have it a basket of lavender, fresh lavender, outside each of my entrances. So at the front door to my home, the back door to my home, and in the garage family entry. And I've also got lavender bushes. That's why they're often planted near fronts and back doors. I mean, they just smell good. They also keep bugs away. Fleas and ticks don't like them because they've got that strong scent to them, but people in general like it. But it's just very cleansing, very calming. And the affirmation I want to put back in there is, you know, something about, you know, please take off your shoes and, you know, leave any troubles and cares outside, because you're entering a home to just, you know, be comfortable. And it's just, it's my temple. So wanting people to be comfortable, but also not to bring their stuff. Let the lavender cleanse them on the way in, so they're not bringing their stuff inside. This big, magnificent cedar tree is right outside my bedroom. I've got a master ground floor master suite, And this tree, I've had multiple people confirm for me, and I'm building a little fairy garden at the base of it and just adding to it all the time. And the fairies have great fun messing it up. So I've learned not to try and keep it neat because they just want to mess it up. And I've just let them do their thing with it. I also ask permission before I enter this kind of like a fairy circle around it. I ask permission before I step into it and, water the plant or do anything there. But this big, magnificent cedar tree, this may stretch your belief system. I believe it held the energy for me to find the property that I built on where my home is now. And I believe I lived on this property before as a Native American. And multiple spiritual teachers and healers and different people have told me, oh my gosh, there's some special tree on your property and it helped you find your way back to that property. Because I wondered why no one had purchased the property, because here it was there was a home on the front lot and then there was an empty back lot. And to find a level half-acre back lot to build on in Kirkland, which is Seattle's east side, that's pretty unheard of. So it was just a really big deal. So when the realtor showed it to me, it was just like, oh my gosh, we just found our property. I mean, you had to have some vision because it was completely covered with blackberry brambles everywhere, which was keeping people out quite nicely. But when that was cleared and we could start to see the beautiful trees and just added to it, and it's right outside my bedroom window. So I just really appreciate this tree and feel that it held the space for me. I was pushed off this land by settlers previously, so it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be back. Okay, so this fountain is in my front hallway, and it's just to keep energy moving. And it became kind of a little family altar, just two little snapshots of me with my two daughters, and just working to keep our relationship cleansed and cleared at all times. Mothers and daughters can be best of friends and also have just some interesting energies. So I just like to keep that relationship nice and clean. So it just feels good having it by that little fountain. And there's some rose quartz I put in the fountain representing love. So that's what that is. And it was interesting how I think I had 3 or 4 different feng shui people and realtors and different people that came to my home and said, oh gosh, the energy in general here feels good, but it feels just kind of like stagnant. There's something like not moving in the front hallway, and you should just get a little fountain. So I did. So that's where that came from. And then the photo on the right is representing ancestors. So this is my grandfather, my dad's dad, Ivan Williams, who interestingly joined the Canadian Army as a father of 4 in his 40s. And I need to ask my dad more about that. I don't think his dad ever saw active duty. But just the fact that, he felt compelled enough to, help his country, help the war effort, I thought was pretty interesting. So that's pretty cool to have that photo of him. And my dad is the spitting image now. And my grandfather, as I said, would have been in his 40s at the time. And my dad's 82 now, but just the face, you can still really see the facial resemblance there. And then I've just got some beautiful amethyst there because it's calming, it's clearing. I love connecting with my ancestors, but we can also inherit a lot of stuff from our ancestors, self-limiting beliefs, poverty consciousness, DNA that's not serving us, just stuff. So therefore the amethyst is there. Okay, next slide. So what's here on my dining room table is just some of my essential oils, as well as some things representing Egypt. And the statue of Isis, the little white statue on the left, Isis, many of you are probably familiar with, was a very powerful female deity for thousands and thousands of years. and she represents motherhood. She took care of the world, not just her family, but there are many temples of Isis in Egypt. And this statue is actually from a temple of Isis at Philae. So a friend brought it back for me. I have not been able to travel to Egypt. It's high on my travel list when we're able to travel again. I've only traveled there astrally via meditation. I did go there the day that my friend went there, me via meditation and he there in person, and then he surprised me and brought this statue back for me. And we did remember a past life there together. So it's just kind of meaningful to me to have that statue. She's a symbol of power for many women. So when women start to connect, maybe during their session with me, during their past life regression or during meditation, and they may not even be sure who she is at first if they haven't heard of Isis, but she's a symbol of women coming into their power. And it's in a very balanced way. It's not a warlike way. As I said, this was just an amazing woman who took care of her family, took care of those around her, and took care of business. I mean, she took care of mankind. She took care of the earth. She took care of the world. So I just really love her presence. And then the essential oils on the right, the tall black ones, those are all actually from Egypt. So a friend went to Egypt and brought back these amazing oils. And I think the gentleman that she purchased them from, he was like third or fourth generation of these essential oil sellers. And these just, sacred family recipes had been passed down of how to make these oils. So I was really drawn to them. So purchased a good number of them. So that's what's there. And then on the right is just a few angels that are in my great room. And I love Diana Cooper's books and her oracle cards. So those are her archangel animal cards, which is just an interesting combo if you think of, the archangel and energy with animals. So that's what that deck is. All right, next slide, please. Okay, Gregg, over to you. Well, I guess we can stop at that point. If anyone's got questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, either on Zoom, or you can put them in the chat in the Facebook group. And while Gregg starts walking you through his, I will look in the Facebook group and see if there's anything there to answer. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yep. Do you want to address, let's see, Shannon has a couple of things.
Oh, please, yes.
A lot of comments that we can, I think she's just kind of confirming a lot of things that you were saying.
Well, welcome, Shannon. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Sometimes the little hiccups like Wendy just experienced are to help us stop, pay attention, and look at self-care and needs. It does not mean anything is wrong with you, but that sometimes bringing in another can bring depths to the experience we would not discover on our own. Absolutely. Yeah. In reference to what you and I first, bless you, started talking about your need for an adjustment, and then you contacted me. She's confirming that.
I've never had a healing session like that where I had to move around so much, because normally I can just lie on the bed. But it was interesting. Gregg was able to see me and he's like, oh gosh, they're working with you and you're standing up. I said, well, yes, I already did stand up because I was given the same information. And then at one point it just had gotten so painful. My guide said, just go over and stand by the window and look out the window at that big cedar tree. I call it my Mary Magdalene tree, and that fairy garden. And I was just holding on to that windowsill, and Gregg was just able to see the pranic tube all clearing and was able to see the beautiful flowers coming in like I was looking out at as I got my grounding reestablished in a new way, and just also did a really gnarly past life soul retrieval.
Yes. So I would like to talk about some spiritual tools I use. These tools, these are tuning forks, as you probably recognize. I use them for healing mainly. I don't use these for really anything else other than, well, except for the one in the middle on the left. The smallest tuning. So there's two sets of tuning forks. One, the ones on the left are what are called non-weighted. So those you ring, and it clears the air, right? Clears the fields around you. The smallest one in the middle of the two larger forks is an angel tuner. I use that to clear my crystals. I also use it to clear rooms. It's got a very, very high pitched ring. It sounds great. Sometimes it's intense. I've used it around. I use it to clear patients for in-person sessions, and some patients have said, "Wow, that thing is loud. Can you don't get it too close to me." So it's intense, but it's also beautiful sounding. What's the idea with the forks? They're tuned. One is tuned C, the other is G. The two larger forks, you actually hit them together real gently, and they make a harmonic. And they are of a certain frequency. They're 256 for C, and then I think it's 234 for the G. And the angel fork is a C, but it's a very high C at 4,096 hertz. So those are great. I do use them in the house to clear a room every now and then. I use them when I do remote sessions. So if you've ever had a remote session with me, I use the angel fork to clear my field prior to us, beginning the session. I also use it right after the session to clear me again. So the forks on the right are what's called weighted forks. The things on the very bottom down here are called feet. And you can see there's two different kinds. There's the wider ones and there's the smaller ones. So what happens with these is the weighted ends, actually I hit it on my knee, or sometimes you get something called a striker. It's a little piece of rubber. You can actually hit the fork to strike it to create. It does make a bit of a sound. It's not very loud because the weights kind of muffle it. But when you put the foot on a certain part of the body, it has a pretty profound effect. It applies frequency, both sound and vibration, to your field, and it goes all the way down, down into your bone, and also past to your subtle energies. And it can clear things, spiritual things, as well as, muscular, skeletal things, nervous system problems, circulatory problems. It does a number of things. So I have many more. These are just a couple, but these are the two kinds of forks I use mainly with my healing practice, but sometimes for home application. On the left are some crystals that I only use for spiritual practice, meaning healing practice. So these are specific crystals that, if you're interested, I can give you a link to. They're made by a company called Bioresonance, I believe. Biogenesis, sorry. These are rather expensive. Each one of these costs a few $100s. Some of them more. Some of them are, several $100s. I have used these three crystals for years. The one in the back is a magic wand, is what they call it. You actually put it in or near a person's field, and it keeps the energy moving. This one over here is a bioamplifier. I put it on people. They've noticed profound changes. It can help remove entities. And this one that's a little bit out of focus is called the Flame of Genesis. It's phenomenal. Literally, you can just wave it around in a person's field, and it can remove things, and it can help bring about healing. But I use it in combination with the tuning forks, as well as holds and Reiki type energy movement that I do. Excuse me. To the right, we've got a pretty typical Native American sage situation. So we've got the traditional abalone shell that's used. It's a non-flammable. So that's where you put your sage smudge when you're allowing it to burn, or when you're ready to put it out. It won't catch on fire. The feather to the right is an actual owl feather that my daughter and I got from a bird sanctuary years ago. So the idea with the feather is you can move sage around to get it to where you want to, but the Native Americans like to use a feather to actually move it on a person's body or move it in different corners of the house, windows, etc. So that's what I use. And then this is the one on the left is a bit of the crystal collection I've got. Most of the crystals came from Brazil when I was going down to see John of God at his casa, so they're blessed crystals. I've got some crystal balls, crystal skulls, selenite wands, things like that. The green crystals up here and down here are actually green obsidian, which is a rather rare form of obsidian. Obsidian is a volcanic rock. It's glass-like that usually is black. It's known to remove negative energies. So the green obsidian is pretty unusual. I've got some rose and amethyst quartz, as well as some other things, kyanite, aquamarine. But some of these stones are not crystals that I picked up during earth clearings. So these two pieces here came from volcanic rock from a place called Morgan's Bluff, right? It's within the Bermuda Triangle in the Bahamas, in an island called St. Andrews. This other piece down here I got, it's a piece of petrified wood I got in an area outside of Woodstock, New York, when I was doing a Native American sweat lodge. And I brought these stones. So when I do an earth clearing, I in my left hand, I'll hold something from the earth. So I'll hold one of these stones. And in my right, I will hold usually a pillar of either one of these, the amethyst, the rose, or the white quartz. And it's just kind of, you go with your intuition on what's needed at the time. You can see I've got another angel tuner down here. I use that to clear all of these different crystals. And then over here on the right is a tingsha. I use it during group healing circles that I do in person. It's got a phenomenal ring to it. They're Asian. They're used to to bring about to call to ring in meditation. They're also used. They ring so loud and so true. It's good for you to focus in on the sound as you're starting to clear your mind for meditation. So I use it at the beginning and the end of the session. Also, I'm wearing some things. Shungite. I've got some things on my body, some amulets and so forth that I've gotten referred to from other healers to protect my field. I even wear them when I sleep at night. So I wear things that are spiritual tools as well. I also use, I see Wendy uses some essential oils. I put essential oils on my body every day. I use spikenard. I put a drop of spikenard on every one of my chakra points every day. And I use frankincense on my body as well. So that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but those are my spiritual tools. So there we go, Wendy.
Oh, that's wonderful. A photo that I didn't include was I do a lot of crystal grids as well as altars. So yes. I think those were the things that didn't get included, but that's fine. And just the purpose of the crystal grids, it's just, I have an altar cloth that those go on. It's just got a schematic. I think it's a flower of life on it, sketched on it. And you can just have fun with it and just be guided to whichever of your crystals you want to, lay out in whatever pattern. And I did that for quite a few years for clients. Each client before session, I was doing a crystal grid for them. And sometimes I would just be including a plant on that grid and which then became an altar for them. And I would always find out they needed to ground, and that's why the plant was there. Or maybe I'd put a white feather on there and they just needed more, lightness and airiness and needed more help connecting with the divine. Or maybe there'd be water, or the sage to represent fire. So it's just kind of neat how we get intuitively guided to what to have out. I know Shannon has an immense, wonderful altar. I think is in her kitchen, that she has a lot of sacred items on. So other people certainly may be, just using these tools in that way too, to just have an altar. So, are there any other questions or comments or things that we can be helping with at this time? And Gregg, I'd like to just second what you said, of wearing certain things that are just meaningful to us, spiritual tools on our bodies. I love to have pockets in whatever I'm wearing, because I've got black grounding crystals in my pockets, just to keep me on the planet and keep me nice and here and nice and grounded, because I'm just kind of naturally in my upper chakras. So it's just that reminder to be in the body and be grounded and be here on the planet.
Shannon does have a couple things she wanted to say. She said, I'm hearing Gregg would do well with singing bowls, and that is something I forgot to show. I've got one singing bowl that I do use as well in in-person group healing sessions, and sometimes a gong at a place where I practice. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Music and sound are natural healing tools he is aligned with, if he ever explored them. Have you looked into those or thought of going deeper than before onto those? Yes, great, great intuitive comment. I'm really interested in crystal and stone singing bowls, so I would love to start. I would like, they're expensive, so that's why I haven't gotten involved in them. But I would love to start using them more. And okay, something switched.
Yeah, that does make perfect sense, Gregg. A musician who's a healer and just sound vibration, that just makes perfect sense. And for me, it more comes through more auditory. I'm really fortunate. I hear my guides all day long, but I don't have to do any translating of images, and I don't have to translate from other languages. It comes through in straight up English. I'll throw a little French in to keep me on my toes and remind me I used to be bilingual, but other than that, it's pretty much straight up English. And that's pretty unusual, because most psychics and most intuitives are having to interpret, from symbols, and there can be, longer pauses while they're working with the client of, I'm seeing this, what does that mean to you? And I get straight up English, like the person is standing there with me, and there's just no pauses. And I think that correlates with me being a channel and being an author. I think that's why I'm blessed with, I get the information that way.
Yes. So we're coming toward the end of the hour. I think we don't have any other more questions. So if you're good with wrapping things up.
Sure, let's wrap up. Well, thank you so much to everyone for being here. We really, really appreciate it. And my website again is my name, wendyrosewilliams.com. And Gregg's is greggkirk.com, and it's GREGGKIRK.com. And let's get a little feedback. I was thinking perhaps another topic, something that keeps coming up with clients is trust my intuition. How do I trust my intuition? I feel like I'm getting this information from my higher self or from my guides or, from whatever source. How do I know if it's real? How do I trust it? How do I move forward with it? Because people are just, really struggling with that and moving back into their left brain a lot and just doubting it all. So that's just a thought for the group, if you might like that topic. And we're certainly open to, please suggest other topics to us and go through the the previous broadcast that Gregg is kindly sharing on the wakingupspiritually.com website, and there's a broadcast tab on there. So thank you, Gregg, for all the technical work that you're doing. Very much appreciated.
Very welcome. All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, Wendy and I will be responding to your comments that you made in our Facebook group. But don't forget to come, like Wendy said, come check out our website at wakingupspiritually.com. Thank you all, and have
Thanks,
a great
everyone.
rest of your weekend. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.